Good afternoon and welcome back to another session, Rumination with Andrew. Well, this is going to be a quick one. I did not plan to come back so quickly, but so many things are happening in the world, and I thought of sharing this bit of news with you. So let's delve into this piece of article that is coming from the daily newspaper. And they are talking, let me pull that article up, and it's talking about where, this is coming from the Daily Mail, right? The Daily Mail, that is a UK publication. It says, now Massachusetts says it's being hit by a wave of pneumonia in children as Ohio County issues white lung warning after China and Europe saw a surge in cases and hospitalizations. And notice that they are talking about the children, and almost all of the pictures that I have seen so far from many of the media sources, whether it's coming from Yahoo News, it's coming from the government newspapers, and I'm sure the Washington Post and the New York Times, they're all, talking about children. The emphasis is on children. So, and when they're doing that, you have to read between the lines because that is what their objective is. Now, doctors in parts of Massachusetts and Ohio are reporting a spike in child pneumonia cases similar to the outbreak spreading in China and parts of Europe. In Warren County, just 30 miles outside Cincinnati, there have been 142 pediatric cases of the condition dubbed white lung syndrome since August. Figure health officials there described as extremely high. Not only is this above the county average, it also meets the Ohio Department of Health definition of an outbreak, the county's health department said Wednesday. Meanwhile, in Western Massachusetts, physicians are seeing a whole lot of walking pneumonia, a milder form of the lung condition, which is being caused by a mixture of bacterial and viral infections. So we see here a mixture. Hope that's not coming from a lab, because we know that COVID-19, by now you should know, it was not natural. It came from the Wuhan lab in China. Neither outbreak is being caused by a novel pathogen, and not all of the pneumonia cases are being caused by the same infection. Experts say a mixture of several seasonal bacterial and viral bugs are hitting at once, putting pressure on hospitals. Now, the experts say, we don't know who are the experts that they're talking about, but the media likes to brandish these terms, that the experts. Who are the experts, and who are these persons who did that research? Or is it just a scare, or are we to take them very seriously? But a source at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention told dailymail.com that nationally nothing is out of the ordinary in the data. Dr. Amish Aldaja, an infectious disease expert from Johns Hopkins University in Maryland, told dailymail.com. I would caution, he or she's speaking, I'm not sure Amish is a male or female. I would caution against extrapolating one Ohio county to a country of 330 million people. Hopefully we can trust them, because as we said in a previous video, the CDC and most of these health institutions, these public health institutions, they double speak, and we cannot trust anything that comes from their mouths. That is the reality, and I hope that you are taking stock of that. Now, patients in the county, which is home to around 200,000 people, have tested positive for Mycoplasma pneumoniae, a bacterial lung infection for which some antibiotics are useless, adenovirus, a normally benign or respiratory infections, and strep. So already they're telling us that the antibiotics are useless, are somewhat useless, right? Because of course, you know what they are trying to promote. These people are very, very interesting people, to say the least. And I use interesting because I don't want to describe what I think they are. I'm trying to be decent here, and also not to be sounding as if I'm angry. Even though sometimes what they do, I must say, truth be told, I am angry, but the Bible says that vengeance belongs unto God. I will repay. Now, there are several theories, one of which is that children's immunity has been weakened by lockdowns, mask wearing, and school closures during the pandemic, leaving them more vulnerable to seasonal illnesses. Now, this is interesting because from the onset of the pandemic, right? Doctors, that's independent thinking doctors. I'm not talking about the ones who think slave-like and who are tethered to this mainstream ideology, which is not science, by the way. They're just tethered, connected to an ideology that is empty and that is not scientific in any sense of the word. But, you know, the scientists, the real scientists, the independent critical thinking doctors like Dr. Pierre Corres and the Dr. Paul Mariks, they have been saying, you know, for a long time that mask wearing, lockdowns, and all of these school closures were unnecessary, and that masks are not going to prevent people from getting a respiratory disease, particularly an airborne one that we saw during COVID. But even now, people are still wearing their masks because they have been deceived, and they think that that is what the science tells them to do, because they fail to think for themselves. Right? It is not that it is something scientific or rooted in scientific studies and scientific data. It's just that it is just a, you know, speculation and scientific opinion. And it's okay to express your scientific opinion. It's when you foist your scientific opinion and you say you make it into a mandate. So those of us who are anti-masks for respiratory diseases, you know, we're not forcing anyone not to wear it. If you want to wear it, wear them by all means. But what I'm saying is that you must also be prepared for the damages that it will do to your lungs, to your just about maybe every organ of your body. Because as we say that in order to have good health, you need good, pure blood. And if you're not inhaling pure air, then it's going to affect your blood. And you are going to have other types of diseases, and your organs will be affected negatively by, you know, the lack of pure air going into your lungs, into your body. Bacterial respiratory infections usually flare up every 5 years, normally as people are recovering from a wave of flu, or other viral illnesses. I must give the doctors who work with our bodies, you know, a lot of props, because I don't know how they look at these images all the time. I would find this to be disgusting. You know, our bodies are wonderful, you know, it's a wonderful machinery, but I can't deal with the images, the internal structures of our body. I find to be disgusting, but that is what they do. And I'm sure the scientists find it to be something that they like to look on, because that is what they do. Thankfully, I don't work in that area, so I don't have to be looking at anybody's lungs. Now, they are saying this is a picture, an image of a 57-year-old man in 2014, and this was an image of the white lung syndrome that he had. So that was interesting. So here what they're telling us to do, according to, they're saying that as we approach the holiday season, when many of us will be gathering together with family and friends, please remember to take necessary precautions to protect your health. So they're telling us about, here are the precautions as they're telling us to take. Wash your hands, the same protocols that they gave us during the pandemic. Cover your cough, which is good. Yeah, we should all cover our coughs, right? Shouldn't we? Stay home when ill, and stay up to date on vaccines, right? Now, they know that the vaccines are ineffective. They know that, you know, that many of these companies, you know, were tethered to the military industrial complex. They got their, you know, grants from the Department of Defense and stuff like that. And they know that all these vaccines have not been effective in containing COVID-19 as they had purported it to be. Now, but they're still telling us that we need to keep up to date with our vaccines. Now, they're telling us that mycoplasma goes through epidemic cycles every few years, and that they may be what's occurring globally at the moment. So we're going to have now, you know, an increase in viruses, and they're going to tell us when these viruses are going to occur every 5 years. So every year we're going to have something that is going to come and affect us and probably kill us, right? It is just amazing what is happening in our world, and what we as a populace, as a global populace, will have to put up with. And that is why we have to take back our health, right? And be careful of what we put into our bodies, not only as food, but also as medications, medicines, right? We believe this is all existing pathogens, meaning COVID, flu, RSV, mycoplasma, but they are seeing an upsurgence. So we're going to have a lot of flu-like viruses going around, and you must ensure that you have a robust, right? A robust immune system, because nothing is greater than your immune system. This morning, I was listening to a program, and it came to me when the person was talking about, the theory of evolution. And I thought for a moment that that theory of evolution has eclipsed God as the creator of heaven and earth, and therefore of our human bodies, right? And because they have done that, they're now trying to play God and to see how they can redesign, remake, right? And to solve the problems that afflict the human body. But we know that they are not gods, that they're not creator. But if you rely on their medications and their vaccines and all that they're giving to you and think that that is the only cure to your bodies, then you would have been deceived, and you would also have accepted them as your God. But if you accept the God of heaven who designed the human body, and I'm not suggesting here that there might not be a medication that you might need to take because you might have destroyed your own bodies, right? Because for the most part, let's be fair, all of us, the diseases that afflict our bodies, we are the ones who are culprit. We are the ones who have taken on these diseases. And that's why when they're telling us that, oh, you're going to give Ma and Pap and all these people diseases, it's not true. 99% of the times, we are the ones who are guilty for the diseases that afflict our bodies. We cannot blame somebody else. And now we tend to be blaming nature. Oh, it's nature, it's coming from nature. It's not coming from nature, all right? We are the ones who, because of our practices, because of our disobedience to the laws of nature, it means therefore that illnesses come up on our bodies. Let's share something just before I leave, just for you to be aware of. But be careful now that the children are the ones who are going to be most affected, and you must have natural remedies and ways of treating your children, because when the hospitals become overcrowded, then you might not be able to get access to see a doctor. But even so, even if you see one, why trust them with your children? You must know they're yours, they're not mine. So you know what to do with them. The fact of the matter is that we also have to heed God's warning, because when we disobey God, we can't come crying and praying when we know that we did not listen. That's what the Hebrews did and the Jews did. They would not listen to the warnings that God had given to them. As a result of that, many of them died. And look at what is happening to them right now. Now, from The Great Controversy, the book, The Great Controversy, I'm quoting from the book, The Faith I Live By, but this quotation actually came from The Great Controversy. And, I think I read this before, but it's important that I reread it for you to have it stuck in your memories. And it says here, Satan works through the elements also to garner his harvest of unprepared souls, which means therefore that he's going to take your life without your confessing your sins to God. And if that happens, then you're going to reap the consequences of going to hell. Remember now, hell was not made for man, all right? Hell was made for the devil and his angels. But because God cannot tolerate sin in heaven, there cannot be any taint of sin, whether by thought or word or deed or action. Therefore, if we join forces with the devil and we sin and his angels, we will also be thrust in what is called hellfire, right? In hell, where God will judge us and dispense his justice upon us according to the works that we have done while we were alive. He has studied, that is the devil, he has studied the secrets of the laboratories of nature, and he uses all his power to control the elements as far as God allows. when he was suffered to afflict Job, how quickly flocks and herds, servants, houses, children were swept away, one trouble succeeding another, as in a moment. It is God that shields his creatures and hedges them in from the power of the destroyer. Listen to what he says again. In accidents and calamities by sea and by land, in great conflagrations, in fierce tornadoes and terrific hailstorms, in tempests, floods, cyclones, tidal waves, and earthquakes, in every place and in 1,000 forms, Satan is exercising his power. He sweeps away the ripening harvest, and famine and distress follow. He imparts to the air a deadly taint, and thousands perish by the pestilence. And pestilence, again, is disease or diseases. So that's what is happening to our world now. As God's spirit is being withdrawn from the earth, we can expect that the devil is going to, he's going to he's going to outpour. He's going to definitely inflict a lot of diseases up on the earth, okay, upon the inhabitants of the earth, because it is going to be his design also to want to provide cure, because that's how he will also be worshipped. One of the ways the devil will be worshipped is by providing false cures for the sick bodies that he himself has inflicted upon sinful men. Hope you understand that. That's what he does. And notice that human beings do that also. They create wars and then they provide the solutions for those wars, right? So that's coming from the devil. That's coming from hell, right? It's not coming from above, but it's coming from beneath, right? These visitations are to become more and more frequent and disastrous, right? So it's a possibility that what is happening, what is coming up on us is going to be more disastrous than we ever had. Now, I just want to read you this, and it's coming also from the Minstry of Healing. A practice, she says, is laying. Let me back up and do this here. I think we might have read this morning, but just to re-emphasize here this point. Many transgress the laws of health through ignorance, and they need instruction, right? So if we transgress the laws of health, then we have to be educated. And many of us, if truth be told, are not educated in terms of understanding the laws of nature. A practice that is laying the foundation of a vast amount of disease and even more serious evils is the free use of poisonous drugs, right? When attacked by disease, many will not take the trouble to search out all the cause of their illness. Their chief anxiety is to rid themselves of pain and inconvenience. So they resort to patent nostrums, of whose real properties they know little, or they apply to a physician for some remedy to counteract the result of their misdoing, but with no thought of making a change in their unhealthful habits. If immediate benefit is not realized, another medicine is tried, and then another. Thus, the evil continues. People need to be taught that drugs do not cure disease. It is true that they sometimes afford present relief, and the patient appears to recover as a result of their use. This is because nature has sufficient vital force to expel the poison and to correct the conditions that cause the disease. Health is recovered in spite of the drug, but in most cases, the drug only changes the form and location of the disease. Often, the effect of the poison seems to be overcome for a time, but the results remain in the system and work great harm at some later period. By the use of poisonous drugs, the drugs are poisonous, even though we think they're not, but they are poisonous because they're not natural, right? They didn't come from the hand of God. Men make them, all right? And men are what? Flawed human beings. Not only are we flawed, but a lot of times we're also wicked, right? If truth be told, we are wicked and we're stiff-necked, and we will do anything, particularly in the Western world, in the whole, under the realm of capitalism, we'll do anything to kill and to damage, to make a money, right? To make a buck. That's what we do. It's always strange for me also that people will talk about these things in the And, when they're discussing history and economics, they'll talk about how capitalists, and how these capitalists are so greedy and so avaricious and stuff like that. At the end of the day, though, ironically, they don't understand when you talk about science. Science is a god to them. So the scientists are not under the same, reality as the economists, right? It's that the science is separate from the rest of our society. It's a very virtuous branch of learning, right? And scientists are all virtuous and they're all morally upright, right? Where is the brain when you think like that, right? What is in the brain when you think like that? To think that, the scientists are morally upright people and they're just there to, help you to feel better. And they're not looking at the money, they're not looking at financial returns, right? It is foolhardy to think like that because they are all a part of the system. The system is interconnected. So whether you talk about education, you talk about economics, you talk about health, you talk about religion, all of these, as we are concerned, if the government has anything to do with it, if politics has anything to do with it, then definitely it is corrupted. And you need to understand that because many of you think that this is a system where, the scientists are working on great data and they are going to do their great clinical studies and all will be well, right? Because it is science. And science is I don't know what people think science is, right? But the main point I'd like to hear, many of them who think like that, they don't understand. And I don't care if you have a PhD or you're a doctor, you don't understand what science is all about. You might have received some indoctrination, but it's not real science because science is questioning, thinking, putting your society together and seeing how science is interconnected with government institutions and what might be, amok, what might not be moral or ethical about what these scientific agencies or institutions are doing. Right? But many of you just have your minds fixed that these scientists are some altruistic beings. And some of them might be, just like you have altruistic teachers, educators, and other people. But but many of them are not. Particularly if they are connected to the public and the governmental institutions. Because we know the government, as we have been saying, is tied to private industries and large corporate donors. So therefore, they are not interested in delivering, right? Ethical, normal, standards, right? They are more interested in ensuring that their financial donors make big, gigantic profits of their patients, right? And the populace in general. Now, the poisons contained in many so-called remedies create habits and appetites that mean ruin to both soul and body. Many of the popular nostrums called patent medicines and even some of the drugs dispensed by physicians act a part in laying the foundation of the liquor habit, the opium habit. So even back then, when she was writing, we had the opium habit, the morphine habit that are so terrible a curse to society. And you wonder why young people now today are on different drugs, particularly after they leave high school, because many of them take these drugs to, as ADHD drugs and other legal drugs that they take that will only increase their appetite, develop appetites for other illegal drugs. So we have to be careful and we have to take stock here. So I just thought of sharing those few information, pieces of information with you. I hope that you you are alert and you remain vigilant, right, of what is happening in the world, particularly as this new disease, well, it's not new, but as this, white lung syndrome is spreading around the world, right? And if I were you, I am going to finish this thing by saying stay away from the vaccines. Stay away from those vaccines, right? Because they're not going to help you. In many cases, they worsen the problem, right? So please use your mind and please use the brain. Please use the brains that God, the lovely brains that God has endowed us with. Thank you so much for joining, and I look forward to seeing you in the next chat. Bye.